Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, President Trump is in Texas. He's surveying the damage of last week's deadly flooding. Officials saying the flood and resulting tragedies are unprecedented. Jack Bradley brings us the updates. Federal agents rescued immigrant children during a massive raid on a cannabis farm in Southern California, and authorities are now seeking a man who appeared to open fire on federal agents. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says a meeting between President Trump and China's Xi Jinping is likely after what he called constructive talks with China's foreign minister. Daniel Monahan has the key takeaways. A big week for tariffs from the Trump administration. Canada is the latest to be added to the list. Jason Blair has the latest. As President Trump's tariffs gain steam, the Treasury Department today saying the U.S. had a $27 billion surplus in June, marking the first monthly surplus since 2017.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. It's been 1 week since the Texas floods and rescue efforts are still underway. Survivors are dealing with the aftermath while others are volunteering their efforts to help those in need. NTD's Jason Perry has the latest and a warning. This report includes content that some viewers may find disturbing.
It's been 1 week since the tragic flooding of the Guadalupe River in Kerr County, Texas. As of Friday afternoon, at least 120 people have been killed and 161 are still unaccounted for. The majority of the victims died in Kerr County, which is in the heart of what's known as Flash Flood Alley in central Texas. In 2017, Kerr County attempted to secure a state grant to pay for an early flood warning system that would have given residents more time to prepare for the sudden rising water. But Texas denied their request. And after that, Kerr County declined to install the early warning system, which reports say would have cost about $1 million at the time. The state legislature is set to have a special session later this month to investigate the flooding and provide disaster relief funding. In the meantime, rescue efforts continue on as a dozen states have dispatched search teams to Kerr County. Volunteers have also been helping to search the area.
A group of 15 of us, they found a couple of the guys who were coming with us found a little girl. A couple of our guys were in the middle of the river where you could walk. And they found a boy. A
local resident also shared some of the tragic findings.
There was 5 as of yesterday over there and 1 on this side.
And he said people have been searching his property as well.
The man walked to me and he said, "We're looking for our daughter." And he said, "I know we're not going to find her, but we can't just sit in a hotel."
Volunteers are also helping in other ways, including an organization called Mercy Chef, which has been feeding warm meals to victims and volunteers.
I was at a ranch 2 days ago and got to pray with a family that had lost their 29-year-old son. He had been a hero in the floods. He kept pushing everybody else back up. And they were all saved, but they lost him.
A professor at Texas A&M University recommends families to get a hand crank radio to be prepared for such disasters.
You can crank it and it generates a little power. It lets you listen to some basic stations so you can get updates about what's going on in the environment around you. But some of them also have adapters where you can plug your phone in, and so you can crank it and get a little charge and maybe give your phone another 10% juice when you might need it.
She also recommends keeping a gallon of water on hand for each person in the family for at least 3 days. Jason Perry, NTD News.
And today, President Trump visiting Central Texas, the epicenter of recent deadly flooding. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us live to tell us more. Good evening, Jack. What came out of the president's visit today?
Good evening, Tiffany. Well, President Trump was joined by First Lady Melania Trump to survey the damage. They also met with state and local officials and spoke with several victims' families. Some members of his cabinet and administration, as well as members of Congress, were there. The flash flood from last Friday that hit Kerr County, there was 120 people killed, 160 still missing, and of note, no survivors have been found since the day of the flooding. Now, the disaster is the deadliest of Trump's second term, now nearly 6 months in. Here's President Trump at a roundtable in the area today.
This is a bad one. We just visited with incredible families that, look, they've been devastated. They lost their child or two children, and just hard to believe what, I've never seen anything like it, a little narrow river that becomes a monster, and that's what happened.
Now, as for recovery and rebuilding, the local communities, they're holding out hope that they can rebuild the area, get it back to where it once was, and even better. But this is something that nobody saw coming. Here's more from that roundtable today.
We will maintain our operations to search and find everybody that we can, as well as ensure that we're going to rebuild this community.
I believe this is an unprecedented event. I haven't heard, in my knowledge, know of a flood that happened like this before.
Local authorities will be holding roundtables in the coming days to better work on prevention measures, not just for that area, but across the state. Tiffany.
And Jack, as officials are saying this is an unprecedented flood, how are they gauging the federal and local response?
Well, they're saying that the response was rapid given the unprecedented nature of the situation. They say that President Trump quickly dispatched emergency personnel and declared a major disaster in time, allowing the state more federal resources. Let's take a look.
On the very day of the flood, the Coast Guard literally saving lives right and left, and we cannot thank you enough for deploying the Coast Guard, deploying the resources, and as you pointed out, immediately, when I made a request for a disaster declaration, you and your administration granted that. This is the fastest that I'm aware of any administration responding.
Now, Trump on Thursday approved a request from the Texas governor, Greg Abbott, to extend that major disaster declaration just beyond Kerr County, but to 8 additional counties, making them eligible for direct financial assistance to recover and rebuild from this disaster. Tiffany.
All right, Jack, thanks for that update. Federal agents rescued at least 10 immigrant children during a major immigration raid at 2 cannabis farms in Ventura County, California. The operation sparked clashes with protesters and what appeared to be gunfire aimed at officers. NTD's Christina Corona has the latest.
Federal agents rescued at least 10 immigrant children during a major criminal warrant operation at 2 cannabis farms in Southern California on Thursday, one in Camarillo and another in Carpinteria. 8 of the children were unaccompanied, with the youngest just 14 years old. Officials say the children may have been victims of forced labor, exploitation, human trafficking, or even smuggling. According to the Department of Homeland Security, around 200 illegal immigrants were also arrested at the sites. Tensions escalated as demonstrators clashed with federal agents who deployed flashbangs and tear gas to control the crowd. At least one man was caught on video who appeared to fire a gun at federal officers during the raid. U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley shared a post on X of the suspect. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to the suspect's arrest. In response to the raids, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass signed an executive directive Friday aimed at supporting immigrant neighborhoods.
The executive directive that I will be signing in a few minutes is to help the city family, to help the city workforce, to help the city departments and all of the general managers essentially develop preparedness plans that have specific protocols and that help city workers know how to address immigration officials.
She says the plans have specific protocols and that help city workers know how to address immigration officials. Bass criticized the ICE crackdowns as displays of force aimed at intimidating the city and called for protections against unpredictable federal actions.
This is about provoking fear and terror in our city. This is about demonstrating to Los Angeles that we're the federal government and we can come in and do whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want.
However, Border Czar Tom Homan warned Friday that the heated tensions are causing dangerous clashes that could cost lives. He said protests are allowed, but interfering or touching agents is a felony. Christina Corona, NTD News.
Staying on immigration, acts of violence against federal immigration officers have reportedly escalated in recent months. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the attacks surged nearly sevenfold compared to the previous year.
The rhetoric is so high, and I said 2 months ago, it's going to end up with a loss of life. The rhetoric has to end. ICE agents are simply enforcing the law that members of Congress enacted.
Between January and late June of 2023, the DHS reported 10 assaults against ICE agents. That number rose to 79 during the same time frame this year, but the agency says the number is likely even higher. President Trump has vowed to investigate those who are allegedly funding the unrest. The uptick comes as some Democrats are calling for ICE agents to remove their face coverings while they're on duty. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries argues federal authorities should reveal their identities during enforcement operations. But Republicans and some immigration officials say the policy will put agents' lives at risk. And how are everyday Americans reacting to the uptick in violence against immigration officers across the country? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
Recently, we're kind of seeing an uptick in violence against the federal immigration authorities. What are your thoughts on that? Have you been following that?
I haven't been following that too terribly closely, but it is deeply upsetting to me. It's a concern that I have. I don't quite understand why elements of our society feel that it's necessary to assault individuals who are simply trying to carry out the laws of the land.
That's their role, is to deport people who are here illegally. I don't think that's right to inhibit that or to show any sort of violence in any regard.
I think that's probably going to inevitably be happening, particularly when you have people that are passionate about their, about their kind of protection of people's individual rights.
Yeah, they chose to take that job. If they don't want that uptick in violence, or they're worried about public opinion or feeling excluded from the rest of polite society, then they can go get a different job.
They're just trying to do their job and enforce the law. There's a lot of laws I'm sure that the police don't agree with that they have to enforce anyway, and this is just one of those situations where regardless of the side of the aisle you're on, the law is the law, and they have a job to do.
Right. Rules are rules, you know. We got to follow them whether we like them or not.
Right now in Congress, there are Democrats who are pushing for to remove masks from those ICE agents while they're on duty. What are your thoughts on that, too?
Absolutely. I don't believe agents of the government should be able to be anonymous in any of those sort of enforcement scenarios. I believe they should individually be held accountable for their actions.
Well, the only reason they wanted to reveal it so they can target them. That's the reason that you'd want to reveal someone's identity, so you could go and target them. So I understand the concept behind it. I don't agree with it, but again, that's not my call.
It would make me uncomfortable if people are arresting wearing masks. I think there is some transparency we need to have on both sides of the aisle.
Well, unfortunately, we live in a country where individuals can be assaulted and found out and pursued for the roles that they are serving. From what I see on the news, those who are committing violence are also wearing masks to protect their identity. So I find that to be kind of ironic.
The State Department is laying off 3,000 employees as part of a workforce reduction plan. The department emphasizes that this won't compromise core diplomatic functions. According to a statement released today, the layoffs won't affect diplomatic security, passport services, or other critical functions. A spokesperson says that the reorganization makes the department more accountable, more accessible, and more transparent. The move comes after an April announcement that said the State Department would work to implement a, quote, historic reorganization. The goal is to better align with America First foreign policy priorities. Terminated employees lost access to the department's headquarters at 5 p.m. today. Affected Foreign Service officers have been placed on administrative leave for 120 days. After that time, they'll be relieved of their positions. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says there is a high probability of a meeting between President Trump and Communist leader Xi Jinping. Rubio made the comments after a meeting with his Chinese counterpart in Malaysia at the ASEAN summit. NTD's Daniel Monahan has that, plus details of Rubio's meeting today with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov.
Secretary Rubio called the talks with Chinese counterpart Wang Yi very constructive, but says the two sides still have issues to resolve.
And that's to be expected with countries of our size and scope and influence in the world, two global powers such as the United States and China. But I thought it was a very constructive and positive meeting and gave us some things we can work on together.
Rubio says the odds of a Trump-Xi meeting are high and believes both sides want to see it happen.
Obviously, we have to build the right atmosphere and the right deliverables so that a visit isn't just a visit, but it actually has some takeaways from it that are concrete.
The Secretary of State says the countries have to be able to interact with one another despite any differences.
I think the Chinese position on Taiwan has been expressed. I don't think it's a mystery to anyone in terms of where they stand on it. And our position has also been expressed pretty openly.
The meeting comes amid escalating friction globally over new tariffs imposed by the U.S. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Rubio held more talks on Friday on the sidelines of the ASEAN foreign ministers meeting in Malaysia.
Yes, we discussed the Ukraine crisis, and we reaffirmed our position stated by President Putin. And he reiterated this position once again during the call with President Trump on July 3rd.
The talks followed a 50-minute meeting between the two diplomats in Kuala Lumpur on Thursday. President Trump says he plans to make a major statement on Russia on Monday. Trump earlier expressed frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin due to the lack of progress on peace with Ukraine and Russia's intensifying bombardment of Ukrainian cities. Turning to tariffs, Rubio said today he was not concerned that U.S. tariffs could create an opening for China to be seen as a stable economic partner.
I don't agree with that assessment. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the United States has built these tremendous trade imbalances over the last 30 or 40 years. It's unfair to American and American workers, and American, in addition to threaten our industrial capacity. Trade needed to be revisited. The president campaigned on that, and that's what he's doing.
Rubio says the U.S. is seizing the opportunity to reset global trade in a way that's fair for Americans after 2 or 3 decades of unfairness.
So I understand if you had a deal where you were running these huge trade deficits with the United States and exporting a lot to the U.S. and built your economy around exports, but had very little import or very little economic activity coming in from the United States, I understand why you don't want that to change.
The United States this week announced new tariffs on many Asian countries, including 25% on Japan, South Korea, and Malaysia. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
President Trump issues a blanket 35% tariff on all Canadian goods, the latest in a busy week of trade moves. The president of Brazil is threatening to retaliate after Trump levies a 50% tariff on goods from that nation. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has the update.
President Trump says a 35% blanket tariff on Canadian goods will take effect on August 1st. In a letter, Trump says that instead of working with the U.S. on the fentanyl crisis after the U.S. imposed an earlier tariff on Canada, Canada retaliated with their own tariffs. Trump says that Canada has called since the announcement, but no new developments yet.
It was sent yesterday. They called. I think it was fairly well received. It's what we need. So we'll see what happens.
So far this week, 22 countries have received letters about new tariff rates from the Trump administration. One of those is Brazil, with a 50% blanket tariff starting on August 1st. Trump cites an ongoing trial with Brazil's former president. The president of Brazil threatens retaliation, saying any unilateral tariff increases will be addressed in accordance with Brazil's economic reciprocity law. President Trump says he hasn't spoken with Brazil's president yet.
Maybe at some point I'll talk to him. Right now I'm not. They're treating President Bolsonaro very unfairly. He's a good man.
And Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that the U.S. is resetting tariff rates globally.
At the end of the day, the United States has built these tremendous trade imbalances over the last 30 or 40 years. It's unfair to American and American workers. Trade needed to be revisited. The president campaigned on that. And that's what he's doing, and he's resetting it on a global scale. We're resetting tariff levels with virtually every country in the world.
White House Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought tells CNBC that the tariffs are doing well so far.
Tariffs have not led to inflation as all the experts said that they would. We're cutting spending. We're reducing the deficit. The tariffs are bringing in incredible amounts of revenue, $3 trillion over 10 years and counting.
Also this week, President Trump says a 50% tariff on copper imports will start on August 1st. Copper prices hit a record high after the announcement. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
President Trump's global tariffs now becoming a main source of revenue for the federal government. The Treasury Department today saying the U.S. had a $27 billion surplus in June, marking the first monthly surplus since 2017. With tariff collections hitting new records last month, the nation took in more than $100 billion in duties for the first time during a fiscal year. That's nearly double the collections in 2023. On a monthly basis, the budget also indicates a sharp reversal from the $71 billion deficit in June of last year. Based on these results, tariffs are now becoming the fourth largest revenue source for the U.S. President Trump has long promoted tariffs as a tool to shore up government funding. He even suggested the establishment of an external revenue service to phase out the IRS. The current fiscal year runs from October 1st, 2024 to September 30th, 2025. Coming up, a potential game changer on U.S. soil. A mining company CEO tells David Lamb about a rare earth minerals mine set to break ground today. The suspected mastermind of the 9/11 attacks won't be able to avoid the death penalty after an appeals court rejects his plea deal. That's coming up. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A potential game changer on U.S. soil. A new mine in Wyoming will be the first rare earth site in the United States since the 1950s. The mining company CEO told NTD's David Lamb what this means for the U.S.
In Wyoming, the first new rare earth mine in the United States in more than 70 years. Ahead of the Brook Mine's official opening on Friday, NTD spoke to Ramaco Resources CEO Randall Atkins. What makes this project unique compared to other domestic mining projects?
Well, it's unique in a number of respects. This is the first time that rare earth has really been found in coal in sufficient concentrations to be commercially viable. So it's a really groundbreaking for really not only coal but rare earths, because they're found in something that's not radioactive like most other types.
Ramaco says the Brook Mine could provide major source materials needed for military technology, batteries, medical devices, and more. According to Ramaco, China currently holds a heavy concentration of these minerals, which makes this new mine a game changer for American independence.
We will be processing it domestically because, again, it's not radioactive, which is why most of the rare earths found in the United States, frankly, are shipped overseas. MP sells all of its rare earths in China because they're radioactive. And it will eventually, of course, all of them will be used domestically. So this is kind of a Team USA effort. And so ultimately, we may even go beyond just simply manufacturing oxides. We may take it all the way to making magnets and potentially even wafers for semiconductors.
He says they already started mining about a month ago, and they will develop materials to use in a pilot plant that will start this summer.
And then we would be in a position to sell commercial oxides probably by, I'd say, late 27 or 28. We may try to accelerate that process because, candidly, the government wants to accelerate the ability to get our nation on a sounder footing for supplies of rare earths.
Atkins believes this project will put Wyoming on the map as a rare earth capital, with the Brook Mine reportedly being the largest unconventional deposit in North America. David Lamb, NTD News.
Congress has less than a week to pass the rescissions requested by the White House, and President Trump has warned lawmakers that he'll withdraw his endorsement to any senators who oppose the cuts. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has the details.
The White House has requested Congress rescind, meaning claw back some $9.4 billion in already appropriated funds for USAID, NPR, and PBS. The rescissions package is meant to target wasteful spending, and the House of Representatives has already passed the bill over a month ago. Most Republican senators agree with its contents.
You get the idea. That's why I call it spending porn. Triggers your gag reflex. You look at the stuff and you go, what in God's name? Who decided to do this? Well, Congress didn't. The bureaucrats did. It's money we appropriated, but we didn't tell them to go spend money, $833,000, and give to sex workers in Nepal.
The USAID money, much of it, and this is not cutting all of it, of course, but much of it is used for ways that are really not benefiting global health and others that it's advertised for. And also the fact that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, particularly on the NPR side, has for years been very much a left-leaning organization.
Some Republicans want to amend the House-passed bill to strike out rescissions that target the president's emergency plan for aid relief. Senate Democrats oppose the bill altogether, but have singled out rescissions that target public broadcasting.
I want to strike the rescissions of funds for PEPFAR. I can't imagine why we would want to terminate that program or the maternal and child health program.
Public broadcasting reaches nearly 99% of Americans. 99%. With programming they don't have to pay for, delivering educational programming for our kids, coverage of local news stories, and life-saving emergency alerts.
If the Senate amends the House-passed bill, the legislation will need to go back to the lower chamber, and there's an important time constraint for Congress.
You know, obviously, it's got a Friday next week deadline to process it, so we'll have it up on the floor next week. Hopefully, we get on it.
It's important to note that funding cuts aimed at the president's emergency plan for aid relief only amount to 8% of total funding for the program. And funding cuts aimed at public broadcasting would only reduce stations' revenue nationwide by 9 to a maximum of 17%. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
How effective is President Trump's threat to withhold endorsements from Republican senators who oppose the rescissions package? Tune in for insights and analysis from Utah Congressman Burgess Owens on NTD's Capitol Report at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. A divided federal appeals court today has thrown out a plea deal that would have spared the accused September 11th mastermind from risk of the death penalty. Here's more.
Suspected 9/11 mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed will still have to face the death penalty. A federal appeals court on Friday rejected his plea for leniency in an agreement he struck with prosecutors. The planned deal would have allowed him to plead guilty in exchange for avoiding the death penalty for his alleged involvement in Al-Qaeda's 2001 attacks. The deal was negotiated over 2 years and approved by military prosecutors and the Pentagon's senior official for Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, a year ago. Under the deal, Mohammed and 2 co-defendants would have gotten life sentences without parole. Mohammed is accused of developing and directing the plot to crash hijacked airplanes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Another hijacked plane crashed into a field in Pennsylvania. Former Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin rejected the deal, saying at the time that a decision should be made only by the Defense Secretary. Attorneys for the defendants had argued that Austin acted too late to try to throw the deal out. Military judges agreed with the defense lawyers, but by a 2-to-1 vote, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia found Austin acted within his authority. The one opposing judge said the government had not clearly proved the military judge made a mistake. The case is now expected to go to trial.
Coming up, a federal judge blocks President Trump's executive order limiting birthright citizenship weeks after the Supreme Court restricted the capacity of judges to issue nationwide injunctions. What's next in the legal battle? Jim Burling from the Pacific Legal Foundation joins us to discuss after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A federal judge yesterday barred the Trump administration from enforcing the president's executive order limiting birthright citizenship. The decision comes weeks after the Supreme Court restricted the capacity of judges to issue nationwide injunctions. Joining us now to discuss what's next in the case is Jim Burling. He's the Vice President of Legal Affairs at the Pacific Legal Foundation. Jim, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you here now. New Hampshire District Judge Joseph LaPlante addressed the Supreme Court's order, saying in yesterday's hearing that previously he, quote, was the judge who wasn't comfortable with issuing a nationwide injunction and that class action is different. Talk to us about that difference.
Well, the difference is the prior cases that the Supreme Court ruled on previously dealt with simply one judge with one plaintiff coming before that judge issuing a nationwide injunction that really had huge effects across the country. Here we have injunctions with similar effects, but instead of one or a limited group of people, this is a class action representing all pregnant women who are not here legally and their children born since the order came in, or their children born since the order came out. And this is supposed to be a class action where the certain standards for meeting a class are met, that the individuals who are representing the class are representative of everybody, that the attorneys can fully represent the entire class, and they have the adequacy and ability to do that. So this is a loophole that the Supreme Court left open in its prior decision, and this judge has found that a way of having a nationwide injunction.
Now, given this latest suit, how likely are we to see the issue of birthright citizenship itself land in front of the High Court again?
Oh, without a doubt, this is going to come to the court again. This is a hugely consequential issue affecting many, many tens of thousands of people. In time, it could be many more than that. And so the court is going to have to take this case, and they will. They kind of did bypassed it, the previous order, but they full well knew that it was going to come back to them in a better form.
And what are the arguments exactly here? For example, the Trump administration is pointing to the line subject to the jurisdiction thereof of Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, while plaintiffs cite the Wong Kim Ark case and the third section of the 14th Amendment. What are the cases being argued here?
So the pieces of this case are that the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, adopted after the Civil War, says that all persons born or naturalized and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens. Now, the Trump administration has been arguing that that applies only to children of slaves who were for quite a while not considered to be citizens of the U.S. And it was saying those children are affected by it. But, and so that was about 1868 when the 14th Amendment was adopted. 30 years later, in the case of Wong Kim Ark, a Chinese person born of parents who were not citizens, he left the country for a little while, tried to come back, and was barred, saying that he was not a citizen and were not allowing anybody of Chinese descent to enter the United States. And he went to the Supreme Court and he won the case. And the argument was that the 14th Amendment, when it talks about people subject to the jurisdiction, pretty much everybody in the United States, according to the court in 1898, is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And the only exceptions are children of diplomats born in this country, because diplomats have certain diplomatic immunity. So we thought the argument had been resolved in 1898, but the Supreme Court, the administration, the Trump administration, is making the argument that the original meaning of the 14th Amendment did not include people such as Wong Kim Ark or children born of illegal aliens today. And instead, it only includes people that are here lawfully and their children.
Very consequential for sure. Switching gears a bit, though, the Department of Education announced earlier this week that illegal immigrants will no longer have access to taxpayer-funded education programs like Pell Grants, student loans. Talk to us about the arguments surrounding the Trump administration's move here. What does the law say?
Well, in 1996, under President Clinton, a law was passed, the so-called Personal Responsibility of Work Opportunity and Reconciliation Act. That's a mouthful. But what it essentially meant that, look, if you're going to receive federal benefits, and if you can work, we are going to require you to get work and to work in order to receive benefits. But there was an exception carved out in this law, Section 401, saying that if you're not here legally, if you're an illegal alien, then you're not entitled to certain public benefits. Now, 2 years later, in August of 1998, the Clinton administration issued a regulation essentially saying that, well, Section 401 really has huge exceptions, and very few things qualify as federal public benefits subject to the alien restriction, and the term unlawful alien really is very, very limited, and only a very, very few people qualify for that. So by and large, we're going to allow federal benefits under this program to go to pretty much everybody here, whether they're here lawfully or not. And the Trump administration, not only the Department of Education, but the Department of Health, Education, Welfare, the Agriculture Department, a number of branches of the government of the administration are saying we're going to issue new rulemaking with the intent to overturn that 1998 interpretation of the 1996 law.
A lot here for sure. Jim Burling, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Coming up at Wimbledon today, could Carlos Alcaraz keep alive his hopes of another championship? Dave Martin joins us to discuss when we return. Now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, plenty going on today, but let's start in Wimbledon as defending champion Carlos Alcaraz was in action today, facing American Taylor Fritz. How did this one go?
Well, it went very well for Alcaraz anyway, though Fritz pushed him very hard. Now, Fritz was down actually 2-1 in the fourth there, forced a tiebreaker, had a pair of set points actually, but Alcaraz saved both of them, and then it got a few more to close out the set and the match. So Alcaraz won in 4 sets. He is into the finals for the 3rd straight year. Let's actually listen to what both the players said afterwards.
Well, yeah, I can be prouder. To be honest, just really happy to make my 3rd consecutive final here at Wimbledon, playing such a great tennis. So just really happy, and just can't wait for Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I had my chances for sure. I definitely feel like good looks in those points at in the tiebreaker to force a 5th. I felt like, obviously, in hindsight, can say all the things I should have done on those points, but realistically, yeah, I mean, I should have been able to get one of them, force a 5th, and then, you know, whatever happens in the 5th happens in the 5th. But I thought that I played a good match. A couple of hiccups. I mean, first game of the match and then in the 3rd set, but the 2nd and the 4th, I definitely did exactly what I set out to do and play how I wanted to play, and I thought Carlos served exceptionally well today as well.
Yeah, so Fritz did play a good match. He had a great Wimbledon. This was his best finish ever at Wimbledon. But for Alcaraz, that is 20 straight wins now at Wimbledon. He is going for his 3rd straight championship on Sunday.
Definitely quite impressive if that happens. In the other semifinal today, we had top-ranked Jannik Sinner taking on Novak Djokovic, but Djokovic did not look like he was moving as well today.
Yeah, if you remember at the very end of his match on Wednesday, he took a bit of a fall, kind of an awkward fall. Looked like he might have hurt his leg there. Maybe that's what hampered him today. Now, he was not able to move, of course, like you said, like he usually does. He took an injury timeout between the 2nd and 3rd sets. They were looking at his thigh. Now, meanwhile, though, he was going up against someone ranked Sinner, who was in top form, really. He was able to handle pretty much everything Djokovic threw at him, especially on those long rallies. I think he won every single long rally. So he won in straight sets, 6-3, 6-3, 6-4. Let's actually listen to what both players said after the match.
Obviously, with Novak, it's very difficult to find things where he struggles, and of course, you know, getting better physically, it helped a lot because it means that you don't rush to go out of a longer rally. You know, I feel like now that, you know, I feel much more comfortable in that, and generally just not rushing so much, you know. But in the same time, it's very, very difficult playing against Novak. You feel the nerves before going to the match, and it was today like the same. So, but yeah, also enjoy these moments because they're very special.
I mean, quite a bit. Honestly, wasn't really a pleasant feeling on the court. But yeah, I don't want to talk about in details about my injury and just whine about not managing to play my best. I want to congratulate Jannik for another great performance. That's it. You know, he's in the finals. He was too strong. I do feel, yeah, disappointed that I just wasn't able to move as well as I thought or hoped that I would.
Yeah, so now it's number 1 Sinner versus number 2 Alcaraz for the title. That'll be Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time. But first, Saturday morning, we got the Women's Championship. Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time, of course, as well. That'll be Iga Swiatek versus Amanda Anisimova.
Oh, you'll have a busy weekend.
Hopefully by the end of the weekend, I can pronounce her name correctly. By Monday, I'm going to have it pat, all right?
Especially if she wins.
Yes.
Shifting gears to college basketball, the committees for men's and women's basketball met this week to discuss potentially expanding the tournament fields. What do you make of this idea?
Yeah, I am not for this at all. Now, I know you're going to want to know why, so I'm going to tell you why, Tiff. Now, it's at 68 teams right now. First of all, I would prefer they would have stayed at 64, which they expanded to back in 1985. All 64 teams have to win exactly 6 games to win the title. But now with 68, those extra 4 teams have to win 7 games, and they're not necessarily even the 4 lowest seeded. It really does not make any sense to me. Now, the main issue, though, why, is how special is the tournament if they keep expanding the number of teams invited. Now, in college basketball, 68, it's out of a possible 355 teams to get there. That's 19%, just about exactly. You compare that to college football's playoffs. 12 teams qualify out of 133. That's 9%. That's much more exclusive, twice as much exclusive. And it's even higher in those 4 power conferences. 33 of the 68 teams in the power conferences made it to this last NCAA tournament this last year. That's nearly half. I mean, that's not very exclusive. 14 of the 16 teams in the SEC made it. I mean, that's more than enough if you ask me. If you want something to be special, it has to be an achievement to actually get there. Watering that down, to me, is not helping. So I'm hoping they keep it where it is. And I'm hoping, Tiff, you back me up in this argument, too, because it's a major thing going on. I have a feeling they're going to just eventually expand it. They never actually take away teams. So it seems inevitable, despite my protest.
Well, Dave definitely has thoughts. Looking at today's baseball schedule, all 30 teams were in action. What matchup stood out to you?
Yeah, I got plenty more thoughts here, too. We've got a couple of the best pitchers in the game pitching tonight. First of all, we got reigning Cy Young winner Tariff Skubal of Detroit. He faces Seattle. Now, Skubal, he looks like he's well on his way to his 2nd straight Cy Young award. He's 2nd in strikeouts, 2nd in ERA, 2nd in wins, believe it or not. But he faces Seattle, which they've got leading home run hitter Cal Raleigh. That game starts at 7:10 Eastern time. Also tonight, Paul Skenes of Pittsburgh is facing Minnesota. Keane's 1st in ERA, 9th in strikeouts. He only has 4 wins because the Pirates have the lowest scoring offense in baseball. Anyway, they play at 8:10 Eastern tonight. Now, one more great pitcher going on tonight. 3-time Cy Young winner Max Scherzer making just his 5th start of the season for Toronto. The Blue Jays are at the A's. That game, of course, played in Sacramento. That game starts at 10:10 Eastern time. We've got some good pitchers going on the mound tonight. I'm sure you're going to want to catch these games too.
Starting very soon.
Starting very soon, top of the hour here.
Well, Davis, always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tiff.
And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.